So in my original draft for this script, I found myself making a lot of comparisons between this game and, you guessed it, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I ended up rewriting, as I have now, because I don't think it's fair on either game to do that. Yeah, sure, Ubisoft have clearly copied Nintendo's homework, however, it's obvious to me which game I prefer. I didn't like Breath of the Wild. It's not that I think it's a bad game. I know it is good, a lot of people loved it, and revere it as one of the best games of all time, but not me. I found it kind of boring. I didn't know what to do half the time. I did enjoy the shrines, even though I'm not that big of a puzzle fan. Also, I love survival-based games straight off the bat. A big game breaker for me, and I know a few other people didn't like it, was durability. It doesn't make fights dynamic or tense when your sword snaps in half mid-swing. It's annoying. Like I said, I love survival games, but it just felt as though stuff like that was getting in the way of what could have been an all-round good time. Also, $60 is not £60, Nintendo. What are you smoking? Anyways, I'm starting to rant on a bit, and to reiterate, it's a good game, but it's just not for me. With that being said, probably one of the biggest clones of Breath of the Wild is actually something I quite enjoy. No, it's not. Genshin Impact. Immortals Fenyx Rising is an action-adventure open-world game developed by Ubisoft. Wait, no, please, come back. It's completely okay for you to be turned off by now, however, at least hear me out. While Immortals obviously holds on to a couple Ubisoft design staples, I genuinely believe this to be a step in the right direction. There's still that Ubisoft DNA in there. Of course, it wouldn't be one of their games if there wasn't tall objects to stand on and scout the map from, but it feels like they've actually tried something new this time. Can I just say that I love the way the story is portrayed in-game? So, what's happening throughout Immortals is Zeus and Prometheus are in fact narrating over everything you do. The entire game is basically just a story being told by Prometheus to Zeus. They are just as much the main characters as Fenyx is. Prometheus is currently chained to a rock, with his liver being doomed to be eaten by Zeus's eagle, as the myth is told. He sets a wager. If Fenyx, the mortal, is able to triumph and beat Typhon, Zeus must set him free. The doubtful Zeus offers his terms, that if this doesn't come to fruition, Prometheus must help him take down Typhon. So you have these two different clashing personalities narrating the game, chatting about what you're doing, offering exposition, and often breaking the fourth wall.
Wait, that was just the prologue? How does it take someone that long to begin a story?
The exposition part happens a lot, although it's not as bad as it sounds. The entire setting is oozing with Greek mythology, from points of interest, quest lines, even the puzzles. Quests, for example, use tales from mythology as a base for the story, which I love, so you may find yourself a little lost to the context. The narration serves as a way to tell the story behind the quest, often with Prometheus and Zeus arguing as to how and why things happened the way they did. Prometheus tends to be the level-headed side, whereas Zeus is the mentally challenged side.
I can't take this anymore. Zeus, Gaia lied to you about how Aphrodite was born.
Oh yeah? Then tell me how it really happened.
And Kronos, they fought.
You can't be serious.
Fell into the sea.
That's...
Because Kronos cut off his...
You're sick, Prometheus! Do not talk to me!
With the sea foam secure,
Ah...
Fenyx resolved to return to Aphrodite with the key to her freedom and the vault.
It's good stuff. It allows them to turn otherwise egregious storytelling into something that serves as much needed context, so you're not needing to turn to Google every 5 seconds to understand a reference. It's because of this I would actually recommend the game to someone who wants to learn about Greek mythology, because it really goes hard in that area. Fenyx also serves as exposition verbal diarrhea. That was really hard to say. But the only thing they were ever good at to begin with was in fact storytelling. So they act as sort of a player POV where they're like, oh my god, if it isn't that god from that story. It's kind of endearing, but I do feel like, they could have maybe toned it down, because you already have these two guys chatting shit in your ear 24/7. The characters all around are decent enough, and it's fun to learn about the family dynamics of gods. There's all these clashing personalities which further highlight the fact that just because you're related to someone doesn't mean you have to like them. The gods themselves each rule over a part of the map, and these areas reflect the type of god that lives there. The starter area is nothing to shout home about because it's just a tutorial area. However, the first proper area is a looker. It's vibrant, it's lush, it really nails the painterly aesthetic that the game is going for. It makes sense then that the god responsible for this is Aphrodite herself, the god of love, beauty, pleasure, passion, and procreation. Oh yeah, speaking of procreation, the amount of sex jokes in this game really caught me off guard. I was under the impression that this was a kids game, but evidently not. In fairness, a lot of them could fly under the radar with younger gamers, so I suppose they're there for the older people maybe. I don't know, it's rated 12, it could go either way.
Without you, I would have lost the ability to love myself forever.
Actually, I stole that years ago.
Clearly. Looks like you've been loving yourself far too much. Oh, you might want to disinfect that toga.
Yeah, anyways, the regions look good, they look great, there's lots of nice variety. Most of the footage you're going to see in the background is from the first area, because just like that other game I mentioned at the beginning, Discovery is Immortals' bread and butter, so I'd hate to spoil too much should you want to check it out for yourself, and please do. What else other than seeing stuff is there to do, you might ask? Well, my friends, I'd say 60% of the game involves puzzles of the environmental sort, the other 40% is combat. In order to get stronger, so you have an easier time taking part in said puzzles and combat, you can upgrade Fenyx in a couple of key areas. You can upgrade your max health and stamina, increase the damage weapons deal along with the protection armor offers. You can upgrade your carrying capacity for arrows and potions. The potency of potions can also be increased. And finally, there's also a way to upgrade your base skills and also buy a few new ones too. How exactly you go about doing all this ties into exploration. Let's start off with weapons and armor. These can be upgraded with different coloured shards you get from killing enemies and opening chests. It's important to note that you don't upgrade an individual item but rather your proficiency in using them. All of the equipment that you find is unique and offer bonuses that often go together with other items, allowing you to create builds. When you upgrade past level 4, you'll then unlock a second perk on all corresponding pieces of equipment. I like this. I like it a lot. It means I don't have to worry about stuff losing viability later in the game because I only leveled that specific sword or that specific helmet. Leveling very nicely affects your effectiveness with that overall type of gear. Next we have health and stamina. These are upgraded separately, however I lump them together because they're pretty straightforward. To upgrade your health, you'll need to find ambrosia, which can be found all over the place simply by exploring. Your health can be upgraded 12 times, each level increasing the amount of ambrosia you need. Stamina can be upgraded by using bolts of Zeus's lightning, and these can be gained by completing Vaults of Tartarus, essentially the Breath of the Wild shrines. Again, there are multiple levels to buy with these, and I'd argue that your stamina is even more important than health. Pretty much everything you do with movement costs stamina. You know, climbing, gliding, jumping. You do not want to run out of this. You'll probably die. Potions can be upgraded with amber, which you can find by chopping down glowing trees or in chests. Potion upgrades are generally pretty straightforward, and each time you do so, it just increases the percentage of its effectiveness or adds an extra chunk of replenishment if it's a health potion or a stamina potion. Lastly, we have the skill upgrades. There aren't that many of each, usually 2 or 3, and each costs a number of coins that are awarded from these things called myth challenges. Like I said, there aren't that many, however they are all very useful, and I'd recommend each and every one of them. There are also these things called godly powers, which are combat abilities you can use provided you have enough stamina. See what I mean? Stamina is important. They're alright though, they're not that great. I found that unless you fully upgrade them, then they're not all that strong. If you have a good build going on, then it's easy to just forget they even exist, because your weapons will be doing all the work. There are 2 of these powers, called Heracles' Strength and Apollo's Arrows, that are used in a lot of puzzles, so I would suggest focusing on those ones in particular if you want to have an easier time in the puzzles. So I'm sure by now you've probably realised there's a lot of areas you build a character in, and each of them exist independently of each other too. It's easy to be put off by this because they've essentially designed a game around collectible hunting, which for someone like me just doesn't sound great at all. However, I am me, I have played this game, and it's a lot of fun. There's a lot to see and do in Immortals Fenyx Rising, and the seeing and doing is a great time. The Assassin's Creed games, for example. Sightseeing is one of the strong points of the Assassin's Creed games, being that they all have real, true-to-life historical settings. The depiction of the Notre Dame in Unity was praised for how accurate it was, and still is, so much so that they used a 3D model as reference for the rebuild when it caught fire in 2019. Being that Immortals is set in a completely made-up fantasy land based around Greek mythology, they can afford to make some artistic flourishes in creating the map. It works and they reward you for getting out there and exploring every nook and cranny. Let's talk about combat, shall we? It's not the most pant-pooping exciting stuff you'll play around with, but it's still pretty fun. You have your light attack and you have your strong attack. Your light attacks are quick sword strikes that can be spammed to do combos which lead to finishers doing even more damage. Heavy attacks operate in the same way, except these are stronger and slower axe attacks that build up a stagger bar. Once full, the enemy will fall over and be stunned for a short while. Both attacks increase some kind of combo meter that I'm not really sure what it does apart from make you feel good, because I guess big numbers are nice to see. If it does do something, I didn't notice it. Mobility is your best friend in most engagements, because while there is a parry button, I found it much easier to dodge at just the right time to activate slow-mo so I can get a few good hits in. At one point, I'd upgraded Fenyx so that I could dodge up to 5 times and even pull myself towards flying enemies in the air, and on the ground. Like, I'm supposed to be mortal, yet I'd gotten to the point where I could fucking fly around and not a single person was able to hit me. It was nuts. It honestly felt like every time I'd upgraded there was a noticeable jump in what I was able to do, rather it being tiny little increments that accumulate. It's nice. Last but not least, we have the puzzles. There's a lot. The main ones you'll be doing are the vaults, which are, like I said, a riff on Zelda's shrines. You basically drop down a hole and then you're confronted with either a puzzle obstacle course or a challenge arena, where you beat a few waves of enemies. The actual puzzles tend to be physics based and involve pushing, rolling, throwing stuff around to flip switches so you can get to the end and bag yourself a bolt of Zeus's lightning. Provided you aren't too smooth-brained, you can expect to complete these in around 10 to 15 minutes at a push. There's a decent amount of variety to these and they're kinda fun to do. I will say that Breath of the Wild does have the edge in this area, but it's a good effort nonetheless, and even if they're too hard to complete with your current skill set, you can just leave and come back at any time. Outside the vaults, there are also lots of different puzzles on the overworld to complete. I could list them, but there's just too many for that. We'll be here all day. Part of the fun is discovering the puzzles and figuring out what you have to do for yourself. The game doesn't hold your hand much, so generally you will find you'll stumble upon something without knowing if it's a puzzle or even how to complete it. Especially the environmental ones. Again, that's all part of the fun. Exploration and discovery is the driving force behind many of the game's mechanics. You're rewarded for experimenting, so even if you don't have the means to finish the puzzle, it's likely you can. You just need to be creative. Often enough, I felt like I was doing some puzzles the wrong way, but still managed to solve them, just unconventionally and unintentionally. The through line here is, you gotta do them. They are fun, there is variety. You're not likely to get bored. Here we go. 2, 4, 1, 3. What do we get from this? I think we get some coins, some pennies. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. I feel so damn smart right now. So you've likely got a better image of what to expect from Immortals now, I'd imagine. It's definitely inspired by Breath of the Wild in more ways than one. That's not a bad thing though. It's a great multi-platform alternative, it's from a developer whose pedigree is open world games, and you also have to sell your home if you want to buy Breath of the Wild along with a Switch to play it on. If you've already played Breath of the Wild, then Immortals Fenyx Rising is perfect for you guys out there waiting patiently for that sequel, whenever it comes out. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's okay if you didn't. If you made it this far, then well done you. I'm still learning how to edit and write properly. They are two very different skills, and to bring them together to make a video is a different challenge altogether. I'm still deciding on how I should format my videos, because I don't want to make reviews per se, but rather, here's a cool game and here's what it's about. I've played a lot of video games in my time, but none of that means I'm anywhere near qualified to tell you if they're good. I've noticed that I'm leaning too much into open world games, which are maybe a bit more than I can handle in terms of my level of production skills, so I think the next game I'll talk about will be something much more linear, like maybe a good 6 to 8 hour single player campaign. I'd also like to possibly make videos discussing topics rather than specific games. However, I do work full time on dodgy shifts, so it's hard to find time to play the games, never mind even make videos on them. If anyone, or someone, shows an interest in that kind of stuff, I'll give it my best shot, I suppose. Oh, and I also do have an Oculus Rift, so I reckon it'll be fun to make a video on a VR game. Anyways, I'm going to leave you guys be now. Take care, do enjoy the rest of your day, have a good one, and bye-bye.